All right. Welcome to your quantum embodiment. It's me, Jennifer Markham, and Sailor Shining Star. And today we have the pleasure of our guest with us is Lindsay Lee. And Lindsay, welcome. Welcome. And so good to be with you today. And so I'm going to share your bio so that everybody has a little bit of a background on you, and then we're going to go from there. All right. So Lindsay Lee is an embodiment coach, empowering women to reconnect with their bodies, facilitating how to create safety, both with and for your body. She offers insight and intuitive perspective for deep connection and growth. She is an artist and mystic, dancer and dream achiever, healer and healed. She facilitates healing inner child wounds and encourages you to step into your best self. With a master in fine arts in studio art and a master in fine art in theater, directing and performance, she spent over 11 years facilitating creative exploration and growth in academia, 6 of those years at the college level. She ventured out on her own, facilitating embodiment group programs using somatic dance movement. And she's been a spiritual and energetic healer for over 10 years. She follows her curiosity and is committed to her spiritual and personal evolution. Her personal transformational story can be found in the book Sacred Connection. We were co-authors in that anthology, and that is how Lindsay and I got connected. And so here we are today. So again, welcome, Lindsay. And I love that you've come to join Sailor and I in the embodiment conversation. And I believe we might have quite a few crossovers. But first, before we go too far, I think a great way to start would be for you to share a little bit more. Of course, I just shared your bio, but share a little bit more about how you came to where you are today, so that you are this dance and embodiment and coach. And of course, you have the background in academia, but I think I'd love to hear, and I know our listeners would love to hear, how you got to this point with embodiment, and we'll go from there.
Well, thank you so much. I'm really happy and excited to be here with both of you. So thank you. Initially, I'm from New Jersey, and I would say that I started out seriously pursuing the study of fine arts, visual art, at the age of 13. I did not want to go to college, which is hilarious because I'm the first in my family to graduate with a bachelor's, let alone 2 master's degrees, right? Like once I figured out my rhythm, then it was like, oh, I know what I'm doing. And yeah, I moved out of New Jersey to Sarasota, Florida to go to Ringling College of Art and Design. And I studied fine arts printmaking and painting.
Mm.
And I got into the rhythm of tuning into my creative intuition and stubbornly hanging on to a label. And so it took me 6 years to get into grad school. And those 6 years, I really allowed myself to unravel some traumatic patterns and unravel the stubborn me like hanging on to a label of being a printmaker, of being a painter. I just allowed the creative expression to come from me. And I began exploring putting paint on my body and photographing that in front of my painting. So that was actually the start of this embodiment journey. I just didn't really realize it until maybe a few minutes ago, quite frankly.
Well, I love that. I mean, I don't want to interrupt you too much. I do want to comment. I'm a big fan of that form of embodiment and art. I'm thrilled. There's the correlations with the art background, and I'm curious. Did you use? It's a personal question. What types of paints did you use, or did you use markers, or?
Mostly acrylic paint, which is not really that great. It's pretty toxic for you. So don't do what I did.
Good to
use
know. Good
use
to know.
use body friendly paint pigment and a healthy method of removing it. I did not follow through on safety protocol. I was more interested in like, oh, this is fun. What am I going to do with that? Yeah.
Noted. Yes. Okay. And so from the body painting and connecting with your body in that way.
Yes, I realized that I was using the paint as like a second skin. And so, what fine arts teaches you is there's this separation of, okay, I'm really invested and I have this really intimate experience being one on one with the work that I'm creating. And then you hang it on the wall and you take a step back and you say, okay, objectively, what is the work telling me? And I realized that, yeah, I was using the paint as a second skin to cover up some traumatic experiences that I still had unresolved. And I had the opportunity to then sort of dive into personal development and say, okay, so this thing is still bothering me. How do I begin to heal it? And that sent me on the spiritual journey as a healer. I felt this pull, this calling to investigate a specific modality that I have since expanded and shifted away from. But I took several workshops in facilitating energetic healing and spiritual healing. So realizing my own emotional baggage, if you will, I then had this opportunity to unpack it and learn how to not only heal myself, but facilitate healing for others as well.
Beautiful.
So those investigations allowed me to expand a portfolio. I then got into grad school. I moved to Moscow, Idaho, where I really began to shift into the embodiment work. I investigated video work, fine arts performance work, and that's where I got into theater.
Okay. And was
So
that as a teacher, or you were doing theater as a facilitator, or was that still when you were in studies? Just getting
great question. So I was an instructor of record for the art department, getting my master's degree in visual art, and began to venture into theater as a student. And it wasn't until I was, excuse me, officially enrolled as a master's of fine arts in theater directing that I began facilitating theater. So I pursued both degrees at the same time. And I don't recommend anybody do that. I really burnt myself out. And I learned the hard way how to set boundaries with creative exploration, creative facilitation. And I learned it through all the unhealthy ways of burning yourself out, of what not to do. Yeah.
kind of the tough road to
Yeah.
the often common way. We've spoken to that, the positive side and kind of that passion and love, and yet that the balance that life gives us. As I love it, you had said, I had then the opportunity to work with what was still there, and so then you had the opportunity through, okay, this isn't going to work, or the burnout, which is so common, whether it be from with it, many people are familiar with, like, overly with sports, or overly with the arts, or overly with work, or what, overly with whatever, until and for myself, overly with work, and many other things, kind of so many things at once. With a creative energy, it's wonderful, but this is probably why we're here today, in one part about embodiment, because of distill that creative energy, or maybe distill is not the best word, but channeling it and balancing it and embodying and listening to our body through that process, because that creative energy can be, I know for myself, be just very like up in the upper chakras, up in the upper body, which can be felt and experienced through the whole body. But it wasn't until, and a lot of academia, I love hearing your story, because this is very similar. So yes,
there's a fine line between mothering, no matter what the mothering is, and codependency. A
Absolutely.
very fine line. And we
Yeah.
learn. Hopefully we learn.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. I've learned that fine line and how to walk it, or at least when I veered off a little too far to the one side, both in relationships, in professional relationships with work, and within my own creative adventures. Yes, I can channel a great amount of creative energy. But if I'm not getting the proper amount of rest, if I'm not getting, the proper use of recharging my own batteries of silence, then, burnout happens so much faster. And a lot of women are learning this and really taking a step back, going, hey, this is not, maybe I need to change something within my patterns, within my habits.
I love that. Yeah. And I'm sure you're seeing that with those that you're working with, and having the opportunity, of course, often with ourselves first, and then we begin to see it in others around us. So with what a privilege it is, and we have the reflection. And so um I'd like to ask you a little bit about, so when did you begin the work with embodiment in dance? Because then you were doing theater, and
Yeah, I would say that it did. Let's see. It actually did start facilitating group exploration in my fine arts thesis for visual art. I remember having workshops. I invited both actors and visual artists to explore how we blur the lines, and I was just throwing out weird concepts and saying, "Okay, connect your breath to movement." So I was actually doing the somatic work as far back as oh my gosh, when did I receive that? In let's see, January of 2017, I think. Yeah, yeah, which is pretty exciting. But fast forward, through the trails of academia, I taught at Rutgers University in Camden, New Jersey, and from there I went and moved to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and I taught for Coastal Carolina University and a technical community college up in North Carolina.
Mhm, mhm.
And in July of 2020, I was in a massive car accident that left me with a traumatic brain injury. And I taught for 3 more semesters going through this and navigating
Wow.
the difficult brain fog and how disconnected I was from my body. I was plagued with vertigo. I felt like I was awake for 5 days straight, simultaneously being hungover and unable to put my thoughts together. Like it just never went away. Like the amount of brain fog that I had was, I would say, like obnoxious. And character flaw here, I'm going to own it. I was so stubbornly determined to become a professor and create stability for myself that I was refusing to listen, that even with a traumatic brain injury and a few months later getting COVID, and then a few months later going through a massive breakup, I was just like, okay, clearly the universe is speaking to me. I should probably take a step back and just focus on me. So I did. I quit teaching, which triggered a lot of grief because I had, oh my gosh, it was a dream of mine and stubbornly hanging on to this label, right? And I moved to the Austin, Texas area. I moved in with my sister, and I was taking somatic movement courses with my friend and mentor, Lindsay Ellis. I went through all 3 of her courses. And by the time I was finished, I had this revelation that between her technique and all the skills that I had gathered along the way, I was actually prepared and ready to facilitate my own way of creative exploration and healing the body. Within the first few weeks of her level 1 course, my physical therapist said, whatever it is that you're doing, keep doing it. And I was like, I'm breathing and I'm dancing. But my my way of dancing was like, stand up, sit down, sort of move my shoulders and my hands. Okay, and I'm exhausted. Can I go to bed now? Like
I'm so glad you just said that. I'm so glad you just said that, because if there's somebody who's listening and is like, they've had a traumatic brain injury, or we say a TBI or something similar, and it's their relation to their body and their brain, and or just anything similar where they feel that exhaustion or can't focus. And there's multiple reasons that that can be, or we would describe it to be, chronic fatigue or some type of autoimmunes or limitations, or following something major and the body's just exhausted, not wanting to recover. And you had that disconnect. I want to honor, it sounds quite serious, it was serious from a medical standpoint. It was serious, and it would have been great, from like, oh, the ideal is you just would have stopped and all of that. But of course, there's this perfect kind of unfolding to the journey, which you got the message when you were ready to get the message, and it was time to get the message. And then you weren't like, okay, I'll just go heal while I'm experiencing these symptoms. I'll just go out and dance. Like, you mean exactly what you said. You were just doing a little bit of movement. You were intending, and you were just showing up, but it was pretty minimal, sounds like, to start. But it was
absolutely.
making a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And at that point in this journey, I would climb a flight of stairs and get so dizzy that I would need to kneel before I could even open my door. And then it was like, okay, I would muster up the energy to stand up. And then I would like take all of my energy and focus into putting the key in the door lock, take a breath, and then turn it. And then I would like sort of stumble through the doorway and like find my way to the couch. It was like, I'm so amazed that I continued to teach for 3 more semesters after this accident. I look back and I'm like, I really needed help. I was really suffering, and I was living alone and not near any family, and COVID had shut everything down, and I didn't have any friends, not yet at this point. And I was like, there was definitely this moment of something is really wrong here, and I'm really slipping through the cracks medically. So I did. I just had the intention of, okay, I'm just going to show up because, I don't want to waste away.
Hmm. Hmm.
That really hit. Sorry.
Don't be sorry. Thank you. Yeah.
I have so much love and vitality, and to just remember I was just sitting on the couch and like so perplexed about the level of apathy that I was experiencing and the level of exhaustion that I had. I just knew that this was going to be a long haul, and I knew that this was going to require a deep surrender. And I remember saying to God, to my guides, I was like, I know that there's a gift in this. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm trusting in this process. And that's my North Star. And 3.5 years later, I can tell you that I have a stronger sense of self now. And I'm way more connected to my body than ever before. And I'm able to hold space for people with a level of compassion and empathy. I was always able to do this, but it's a deeper, more meaningful way. And I don't get tied up around people who don't understand what I've been through or who don't understand me in this moment. I'm like, okay, if it's for you, great. And if not, I'm not going to take it personally. I'm just going to continue moving on because I've got work to do. Like, I'm here for a purpose, and I'm really anchored into that.
Beautiful. Wow. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you for sharing how you came about to this moment. And I can just see so many reflections in your journey, your personal journey, your professional journey, that internal seeking. We are each on our individual journeys, as it were, but there is this, we know the oneness of all. as great a like drops of water in the ocean, you know, in part of the whole. And I see, as I've had the privilege to, but also with many that individuals that I'm not just working with, stories similar to yours in similar in the way that, but often the time frame is just different for everybody. There's an internal sense something's got to give, or something has to change, something I need to do something, or so just that sense something has to change. And I have so much gratitude that it's not only our higher self, the capital S self, the higher self, that perhaps is that internal voice. It is that internal voice reminding us, but oftentimes it is the suffering of the physical body, this beautiful physical body that we get to inhabit here, the suffering that will bring us to that point of seeking or letting go, or the whole journey. You know, if it wasn't, if we float along or we skate along comfortably, then of course, not that I wish any catastrophe in a physical sense on anyone, but knowing that we can't just bypass the body. And so the body is this beautiful companion, beautiful component to our being, the physical body, which gives us these signals or can literally stop us from moving or from functioning, which will have us seek in these greater ways. And I believe just hearing and the reflection of your story and your experience, especially over these last 3.5 years, how you've come to, you know, it sounds like there was this thread, you know, we call it like the woo, like you were whatever it was. We didn't go into those details, and open to share that, but you know, some people seek acupuncture, some people say, oh, I went into yoga and meditation, or you know, this is sort of these things that I'm doing. And Sailor has a lot of experience in a lot of different modalities, you know, but as individuals who seek um supportive measures or something that might come across our path, and it's there to help us connect um to ourselves, our spirit, our each other, to find more purpose, more connection. And along the journey, I just feel such a call as to why we're here. And Sailor, you can speak to that. In the embodiment, in quantum embodiment, it's so much greater than us, and it's also all about our individual journey. So then your individual journey bringing you to movement and connection. And I can say here with you today, it's clear from where you were when, you know, for those, it's at 3 semesters, that'd be about 1.5 years, right? Almost,
Yeah.
you know, close to 1.5 years. That's a long period of time of just that, such disorganized struggle. Let's just say that you were in the struggle, to where you are speaking to us today. Well, absolutely. You know, they say, what is your purpose is your path. You are the path. So like what you're sharing at this time is who you are, what you've been through. It's not who you are, right? Like, but who you are in the sense of your experience. So then your gifts and your own unique journey, which then sharing that alone is just the medicine. You know it, and whoever is drawn to that could be inspired or learn or encouraged in all the ways in which coaching and embodiment, and dance practices can be. But I think I'd like to invite Sailor in because there's been a lot of
I'm here. I'm just simply listening and taking it all in.
Isn't that beautiful?
Um,
You're
so-
you're Pachamama grounding space, yeah. Grounding energy. Thank you.
Oh, I I hear so much of my own journey. Oh, it was for different reasons, with finding breath and movement, and in my case, there was always horses in my life somewhere. So the breathing and the movement and the being with them helped bring me out so much more and become more in touch with my body. I went through like 12 years of incest and was totally disassociated from my body. And it took a while, and different modalities at different times. And the one constant was always my connection with the horses. And whether it was a really good connection or whether it was a distant connection, depending upon where I was with who I was at the time and what was going on with my life, there was more accepting. There was a much gentler dance, if you will, with a horse or with the horses, than if I wasn't connected or being very judgmental. And then the horses were like, yeah, talk to the tail. I'm going to go stand someplace else a little further from you because you're just no fun to be with today. Yeah. So, and what I heard you say, and not actually speak the words, but I heard less is more. It's at some point in time, like after those three semesters of still teaching, with all of this going on in your life, and the ability or the out of balance ability to function with all of that finally rose up enough to say, hey, let's do something a little different. Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think I want to ask a question, and which is, how does all of this relate for you with mothering?
Great question.
What a beautiful way to integrate that topic. And I always start off with I love my mother, because I do. I love her. And I incarnated into a family system that is not really so equipped to fully process their emotions. My mom did the best that she could in being a single mom, raising 4 daughters. And there was a big part of her that shut off because that was a lot. It was traumatic for her in her own way, and her relationship to her mother, right? So much of my personal journey has been trying to understand our relationship and trying to nurture myself. And this traumatic brain injury and this healing journey absolutely forced me to unapologetically take care of me. Where I used to like override my system, no, I'll stay in this meeting, or no, I'll stay at this gathering. You know, I'm feeling uncomfortable, and I might be tired later. I'll just stay. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Now I'm to the point of I only have so much battery life, and I know my recovery time if I pass by that threshold. So that's not worth it to me. So from now on, like I have a hard cutoff of bye, and I'm out. And I don't think twice about, oh, I should probably like send that person a message. Like I should probably like people please and make sure that everything is copacetic. No, now I unapologetically take care of me.
Yeah, I have enough years on you to remember, and listening to my parents talk, that, you know, people used to just, well, number one, if we had phones, we had phones on the wall. So we didn't answer all the time.
Mhm.
If we had, we might have had message machines so that when somebody called back or had called you, you had a message and you could return that and know they called. But when somebody was done with a conversation or done in a gathering, they just said bye. There wasn't all these reasons of, oh, I have to do this because of this, or I have to do this because of that. There was no, some of my teachers used to call it making excuses. And not that that's what it was for you, but coming up with reasons for why to take care of oneself instead of just being able to say, I'm done, I'm full, I'm whatever, gotta go. Thanks, see you later.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's amazing how our bodies will create situations where we finally hear on some level, whether it's from falling or being in an auto accident or whatever the case, recovering from a really traumatic relationship, whatever that may be, we're finally called to say, oh, body, sorry, I've been ignoring you. Um, how can I make this different? How can we be different together? What do you require? Instead of we having to go out and do and be for everybody else.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And of course, I love what you just shared about that because there's so many ways that, in which we can have the opportunity. Oh, the possibilities, everybody's own experiences. And I have to say, there hasn't just been one time in my life, but multiple times where I've learned it's been sort of this like process along the way, like, oh, I understand. I'm going to honor myself a little bit more. Oh, okay, that feels good. And then realizing there could be more depth to that. And then another challenging or something would occur and I'd fall back into like a habit or a pattern of responding, that codependency or that, and which can be in a sense of being needed, right? So then showing up to the point of burnout, which is such a subtle one. For perhaps whatever is there can be subtle and unseen and still seen, but that one felt very subtle, like, so, well, isn't it good to show up? I mean, there's that martyr archetype, or yeah, I would put it just more in general, like give or show up in the sense of love or being a caretaker or a caregiver or that mothering energy of just abounding love. um and there is sort of that, that can be missed when we speak about, well, we're here to just be of service, like be of service. But if it's not said, like, be in service and in love and in mothering with our own body, our own being, then, oh, then it's just a culture of like willpower and determination to be like loving and of service, because then there is a point where it's just like hitting the brakes, like no more. And you might not realize it. The body might be the thing that's protesting, you're not going to do anymore. You're completely exhausted. Oh no, what's wrong with me? I have a condition. There's something, just totally losing track that like the body is speaking. And not to say that's wrong. We each have a journey that is serving to us. I think it's all perfect, but um, just love. We can talk about this, and that's why we're here. I just love the conversation that encourages and reminds us that, we can get it, and then we can get it in a more subtle way, or we can be reminded and fine tune that. Is what is that? We might be really good at putting boundaries with work or putting boundaries with people we aren't that close to. But then what about, and when I say boundaries, I mean more about honoring how we feel and what we're going to choose and what our body feels moment to moment. It might be so much easier in like the less tightly connected relationships, and then much harder with, say, children or intimate partner or family. And then, so I love that, well, I love the very special way that you are here now and it's beautiful and perfect, but I love, you know, the potency of your journey was like, yeah, I have this, how you put it, I have this battery of capacity, but really, however the language is used, and I love that way of putting it, but the body's speaking, the body's always speaking. And and sometimes that is rest and sometimes that is, well, it can be anything, it can be anything, and you're speaking to not only rest and stopping and just pausing in a way what was all happening in life and going and being in a safe container, uh, or a calm, I'm just going to say you were in a container that you could pause and you could focus on you. And then it didn't mean you did just stay still. You were drawn to this connection of movement, which, yeah, I just honor you in that mothering. Yeah. You know, mothering yourself, remothering yourself. I think we all have the opportunity of that remothering, whether the relationship with mother has been amazing, wonderful, I didn't, we were, we have always been, or whatever, we're super close, or we don't even speak, speaking of the actual mother figure, whether you're a woman or a man or however you identify, that um the relationship with self, we reparent or we remother, we fine tune, because we're not robots, right? We're not just like these pre-programmed things. We have our unique experiences, and then we are learning how to listen to, not just listen to the internal voice or thoughts, which we could say is the higher self to a degree, higher consciousness, it can be, but our body, which I had, yeah, I can speak to. I had my own experiences, and a lot of disconnection, disconnection from the body. So this is something that is an ongoing experience of more embodiment. And one of my favorite ways is through dance now. And it's incredible to witness. And I'm loving to witness more and more where people are, well, maybe they don't consider themselves a dancer, or they don't go out dancing. So they think, well, I don't dance. Well, you move your body. This isn't. So I'd love for you to speak a little bit about what we mean by somatic movement or embodiments, or especially from your experience. Um, if you want to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, if I could just expand just a little bit on mothering the self. Just I uh, want to hone in on the importance of not only mothering the body, but mothering the inner self and the inner child.
Mm.
It's so easy to connect to something outside of ourselves, scooping up a puppy or a kitten or, a little baby. It's so easy to like love, and you feel your heart expand, and there's sweetness and tenderness with something outside of yourself. And so much of how I facilitate is to go within and hold yourself with such sweetness and tenderness and soften your heart to yourself. That has been a huge journey and a huge revelation with my own healing practice. And I'm seeing it within my clients too. And so to then go back to your somatic dance question, people hear the word dance and they, a part of them just sort of like shuts off because they're like, I don't want to take a jazz class. I don't want to take a ballet class. I don't want to take hip hop. Like, I'm not about teaching you counts. I'm not about even you moving to the rhythm of the music that you're hearing. I'm encouraging you to attune your energetic body to the frequency of the music that we're using as something to provoke you emotively, emotionally, And then connect to your breath and surrender to your body's desire to move. And there's a lot of juxtaposition happening. Like, I'm going to play like some chill techno music, and I'm going to encourage you to move slow as molasses. Each inhale gets a movement, each exhale gets a movement, because we're shifting the emotion out of the body. And it's not a comfortable process all the time. And sometimes it is really fun. And sometimes the movement combined with the breath work can get you into such an elevated state where you're so blissed out. And it can provoke you emotionally, and you could be, crying and need to go punch a pillow. All of those things are part of the process, and all of those things are beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Because what you were just speaking to, and part of why it had come to my mind is often people say, well, I don't dance, and there's a little sadness within my child heart, like there's an understanding, almost like from my perspective, right? Of course, this is not the full truth, but a sense, you don't want to. So there's a self-conscious, there's still a disconnect. It doesn't mean that anytime somebody says no, like there's a projection of, well, there's something wrong with you. But understanding that with the freedom to move our bodies and understand what dance can mean, because we're speaking to the connection, what you're speaking to is the connection of embodiment and how moving the body, for some people, a lot of women, and including myself, my form of exercise when I was young was also to be with horses and to walk in nature and to ride. And that was, well, I loved doing that. And I danced a little bit, but I did. I danced a little bit. But when I got a little bit older and I got in school, then it was like, I'm going to weight lift. I'm weightlifting like 6 days a week, and I'm rock climbing, and rock climbing is something to get into the flow state, right? But the things that I was doing was like, a lot of it was more of with a rigidity within the body, helping to create what we could say, well, I'm embodied because I'm like always working with my body. I'm embodied because I'm always, I'm very focused on the physical, and there would be the benefits. It's not just black and white. It was benefiting me then at that time, but there was also a sense of burnout, and I can see how dance, especially for the feminine body or the feminine embodiment, that aspect of ourselves, regardless of sex, is the gentleness, the flow. It reminds me of like a poetic way, like the flow of the river and the wind. And when we move in these natural ways, and when we connect to our bodies in what to me is now a very natural thing, but at some point it wasn't. And dancing was about like going out to a club or going out and trying to learn some steps, and did not feel capable. And now I do know that this experience, which continues to grow, uh, is one of connecting with the very present moment, to bring the breath in, similar to meditation, but meditation in dance, meditation in movement, meditation in breath and connection. And I love that you also pointed out that not every moment it feels great, right? Or it's not like, well, as soon as I start moving, then everything's great, because there's a need for the body to release or to let go. And not all that just happens in this subconscious, like dreamy place. Like some of it's going to happen when we're awake, and needs to happen while we're actually present with our body and not bypassing it. Not trying to say blame about bypassing, but like a pattern we're bypassing or numbing out or disconnecting, but instead that practice of so much inner self-compassion, loving kindness, mothering, holding. Like I have been part of some women's circles where we did get together and dance, and I can just remember there was an invite similar to what you're speaking to, just, not going into detail, but there was an invite to move however you want to, or don't move, but be there. And very slight movements. And you see people just on the ground, like for a while, they'd be moving and then they might sit down, lay down, hold themselves, but they're not alone, and they're moving with the music rather internally, allowing things to flow. It's not about like looking a certain way or judging the body or judging self. It's quite the opposite invite. And it might not be what we say is natural, or it's not what a person feels like they are. But by your very story, your very experience, yeah, okay, you're back. People might say, oh, you had the background in being seen. You were in arts and you were in theater. So of course you're all right, like moving your body in front of other people, but I would never do that. What's amazing is this movement can look so many ways, and it's not about uh, becoming some sort of show for someone else. This is an internally, but also can be, I suspect, community based or collectively safe container based movement that is for the purpose of supporting and mothering. I said thank you for describing this internal. It's not just dance movements. It's not just, we're not just like, okay, 1 2 3.
Right. Yeah.
Wrong with
Dance,
that.
dance is all about like viewing from the outside. Like how's my line work? Am I moving to the rhythm? And somatic dance movement, as you just said, is about going within. And it took me a long time to be okay with, being on screen. And I still sort of struggle with it, quite frankly, because having been a visual artist, it was always look over there. That's my work. That's what I did. So turn your attention that way. And then when I was in theater, I was more interested in directing. So I was behind the scenes. I wasn't the one on stage. That was not why I was there. And having the opportunity to work through that, I'm uncomfortable, the discomfort, right? Of, okay, well, this is the work that I'm now doing. How do I talk about it? How do I advertise it? How do I market it? Well, I get to post videos of me working my method. And sometimes that looks overtly sensual or extra sexual because that's how my body moves. And so I have had the opportunity to be like reviewing the shame story of this is too sexual, don't post it, like this is not appropriate, but this is the method and this is how my body moves. It doesn't mean that that's how your body is going to move. And I have still working on it. Every time I create a video of, okay, this is the method, am I okay with posting this? A lot of the videos that I create, I end up deleting and redoing. And then I'm like, but that's not authentic to this process. So now I'm finding myself into the rhythm of, okay, we're just going to shoot this one time. And however ugly it might be, sometimes my hair is wet. I don't have makeup on. I hardly ever wear makeup, just a little bit of eyeshadow. My glasses are on, or I'm in clothes that are way too baggy, and I'm like, this is what I do. I'm experience an emotion. And by the way, emotions are meant to be experienced in motion. They're meant to come up. You're meant to observe and experience them and release them. And we have in society become so accustomed to, no, I'm just going to swallow it. No, no, that's uncomfortable. Let me drink something or take a pill or let me just numb out. No judgments in that way. It's just, that's the pattern that we have become accustomed to. That's what's normal. And then when the emotion gets released, it's big and explosive, and that can be scary. But when I call myself like an emotional athlete, like I just allow the emotion to come up, I express it, and then I release it, and then I'm good. Because emotions are energy in motion. It's supposed to be moved through you quickly. And so when you combine breath and movement to those things, it's like sometimes when I cry, I'm like, oh, is that it? Oh, I'm good. It was like, oh, okay. That's it. All right, cool. Am I good now? I'm good. And now and then I can go on with my day. Whereas before it would be like 3 hours of like the good cry. And I'm like I can't right? Like I can't catch my breath. It's hyperventilating. And it's like, oh, okay. No, I allowed myself to experience it. I released it. I moved it. And now I can go back to the thing that I wanted to do. And I find my center so much faster. And I'm like, and I'm the one, the emotional one labeled in my family, the oversensitive one. And I'm like, right, are you sure? Cool. I'm okay with you projecting that label on me. All right, that's fine. All right, that's cool.
I love you expressing that. And you know all the forms, but the movement, emotions are to be expressed in motion. I had a professor in naturopathic college, and he made up a lot of words and he played with words a lot, but he would say we have a ocean of emotions, issues in the tissues, and then we would talk about how, you know, in order to move the emotions is to move the tissues, to move our bodies. And and I had just heard the other day the Dalai Lama, um, for those who have spent some time with him, um, he is, according to the person who was relaying this information, that he is somebody who clearly experiences all the emotions so easily and so freely. He could be listening to a story and somebody's talking about something maybe traumatic, or it's emotional for them, and he's crying with them, and it's not fake, right? He's with them, he's feeling it. And then if a few moments later, he's laughing and giggling because he's in flow with the present moment, and he's able to express and experience. And of course, there's I've been there with you, 3 hours or whatever, just the release of emotions, or the emotions going. And one of the questions I'll sometimes ask patients is, um, for example, you know, I've been very emotional lately, um, and okay, and so have you been expressing? Well, yeah, I've been crying, and you know, I feel like crying. Or, well, if you do cry, you know, do you feel better afterward? Or, and sometimes there's that answer of, well, no, it doesn't really feel any different. You know, it sort of feels like like I like it's still stuck there, like it's trying to come, but it's not, you know. And without putting too many other words to it, there's that experience that there's a disconnect of whatever may have caused, or whatever the emotions would be. It's often not necessarily just about that present moment, but when our bodies are healing, we're going kind of back through time. This is why we have the opportunity to remother and reconnect, and to then, when these emotions, especially if somebody's been through some very significant traumas and sexual traumas and physical traumas, then when those emotions begin to peak, or things are felt in the body, it can be very frightening or very overwhelming. Or what's the context for that? And the body might, or the mind might, go in all sorts of directions. And I think it's important that we talk about it and remind that that's that's understandable based on the neurology of the brain, but also on our how the body is connected to the emotions, the traumas that may have occurred, and then that disconnect from ourselves because of whatever may have been experienced, or and then and trauma can be in all sorts of forms. But I just know that this is something where somebody goes, well, okay, so I'm supposed to feel my emotions, I'm supposed to connect to my body, but you know, like if I take a little bit of time to do that, then whoo, like all that comes up, and like whatever's there can be so overwhelming. But I love that you brought the laughter into it. your your laughter, your smile and your laughter is like I want to say infectious in the best way, but it fills my body with so much joy. So when you started laughing about, okay, I can move through the emotions, I can be with it. And just because we're here, we're talking, doesn't mean like, oh, you're good, you're done. Like now, because you are a coach, you don't have of course you got it together. You don't have your questioning whether or not to post, or having fears or doubts come up, or noticing, but you're just seeing it. And whenever we do see it, I believe, like, whenever there's awareness, then that awareness itself begins to give the opportunity for shifting. If we don't uh if not if we don't we're given the opportunity for compassion and love for ourselves, um just one step at a time. And you clearly uh have had this journey that's just given you such great wisdom and insight into how to listen to your body and how to be with those emotions. And of course, this ongoing process. But and I said again, Sailor, you have a lot of experience with the different tools, like some of the different tools, and I'm curious if that's some of what you had tapped into in the past too, Lindsay, when you mentioned that you sought out different types of trainings or certificates. But Sailor has many in terms of the ways in which we can connect the energetic, physical, spiritual, emotional body. And there's many tools to use. And I think not everybody's familiar with the many tools. I think could practically be endless, but I think one of the roots is that medicine is, we have the ability to heal. We have the ability to connect to ourselves. We may feel very disembodied. We may know that we are. We may know that there's a lot of hurt or a lot of disconnect, but the ability to heal is there. As long as there's life, it just is so. And there's many tools, right, Sailor?
Yeah. And I often surprised how many new modalities I hear about, because I spend time around a lot of people who are healers or have facilities, and oh well, there's this, and have you heard of that, and this machine and that machine, and it's like, wow. No, I haven't heard of that one. Sounds a little familiar, and different. And then I wonder how much of this are people remembering previous lifetimes or other places and spaces, and they're bringing in these tools that aren't new. They just might be new here and now in this moment. Yeah, it's really, I'm very curious about it all, and then there's and I can only take in so much, and there's only so many tools I wanna try to do at once. And I have some that work really well for me, not necessarily anybody else. So yeah. And I'm glad there are a lot of different possibilities, because we each resonate with someone or something differently. Yeah. And as long as we have something that's working, and we're continuing to play with that, and allow release, and to receive the gifts from the release, and the things receive the gifts from the things we've been holding on to for so long. What's right about this I haven't gotten yet. Yeah, and so many other questions we could ask, which is one of my tools, is asking questions. I like to ask, what's right about this? If something isn't going so great, how does it get any better? If something's going really well, what else is possible? All these different things that put out to the universe a question of, yeah, what else can we tap into, or what else can I tap into to change how I am in the world and what I'm putting out there and what I'm receiving, or how I'm taking in what I'm receiving. And am I judging it or am I allowing it? You know, yeah, yeah.
I love the points that you just brought up. Yeah. I guess there are so many tools, and then of course people can share like, well, oh, that's really cool that you found this connection to yourself through this, but I I have done it through this, or of course, because there's kind of like there's a million and one ways, right? In the sense, because there's a million and one us. Okay, there's more than that, but um
I, I love my little short ones because I can do that at work.
oh yes.
Somebody comes in and says, oh, this is going on, or what should I use for this, or what should I use for that? Well, how about we tap in and ask your body, number one. And then sometimes I have people coming in that have entities attached. Oh, I just did this and I don't feel the same since then. And it's like, oh, are you open for some questions? May I ask you some questions? And will you be open-minded about it? And if the energy is not, they're so open-minded, even if they say they are, I kind of temper the questions I ask, so that they're able to receive something from it, even if it's just seed planting, versus, oh my God, she's fucking loony. I think I'm going to turn around and walk out. That doesn't do anybody any good.
Wisdom, Sailor. Wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Only because I've been through so many modalities with great gusto and enthusiasm, and just turned people off with my great gusto. All right.
Evangelist, Yeah. Are you ready to talk about our yeah, I wanted to say you have you heard about our Lord and Jesus? Sorry. It's like a very evangelical, because you're so excited about what you want to share it. And I love that was one of the things that you said in the beginning, as you were sharing about your story, Lindsay. You said, and I've learned that if others are not understanding where I'm at or what I'm offering, and and what is basically your work, or what those aspects of how you're showing up in this world, and if they're not understanding it, you're not like, you need to understand, or how can I make you understand, or please don't go away, or that's a aspect of mothering yourself and being aware and in tune, about that resonance, like you were saying, Sailor, like the resonance, those who are drawn to what you offer, and your unique vibration, your unique resonance will draw in resonant beings. And it's beautiful the way that that works on our journey. And I I have a segue here, as I want to make sure yes, I have a question. Yeah.
Before you switch, there's a term that I still use, and you probably grew up with. You can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make them drink. Yeah. So.
Yes, right. Yeah. That brings back the thought of the mothering. Yeah, that desire. Sometimes it's like, well, okay, somebody who I don't know, but you think again back to those closest to us, or those that we care. So, we know them more, so we might care so much more, or they share with us, this is what's going on with me. Well, then let me tell you how I can help you. Let me tell you the way, well, have you tried this? And you could do this. And I have found, not that, yeah, I have found over time, um, it's okay to share. It's not just to like keep it all within, and to be and express as ourselves, as we feel called to in a moment, with wisdom as to where we are now. But yes, if it's not resonant, if the person is not maybe asking, then they're not seeking that, and or they're not gonna be able to take it in. And I the revelation can happen within, and we shine our light, we share our lives um, by that very means of however we're called to show up. And those that will attract will come. But yeah, we can't make them drink. Can't be like, here is the fountain of youth and truth and joy and bliss. And if you just, it's sort of a form of like, if you just take this pill, no, but it's not really, because of course it's not so simple. But like, I know the way, like I got the answer for you. And that can lead to a pattern of disempowerment, or literally others just being like, yeah, thanks, even though you may be this shining example. And often, I believe whatever it is in our true honest expression, we are in that way, like shining our light however it occurs in the moment. But it is for us, and then those who would serve, they come to us. So I imagine that is who you are, you're drawing to you, those who work with, who um, benefit from your story, your unique journey, and your unique gifts. And then segue into how I wanted to ask you this before, but we're coming around to, I'll just get right to it. How has it been in your perspective, since the 2020, when this TBI happened, when the car accident happened, and then you've been, especially those first years, but now 3.5 years later, through this process of you healing and a lot of changes in your life, but also leading you to quitting academia, um, really quite choosing, I would say, wisely, and but all that came with that. How would you speak to this journey since the TBI, and you working through the healing that you have up to this time, um, be a part of your spiritual journey? And I think the reason I want to ask that, I think about when accidents happen. So a lot of times people will go, say, well, there's health issues, there's chronic things, but then accidents happen. Just accidents just happen. I mean, and those are just oops, like that's just random. But in my experience, everything's an opportunity, not random really at all. And so I'm curious about, and you've spoken to it to a degree, but since that point, your life has clearly changed. And I wonder about how you view it on your spiritual journey.
I thank you for that. I really consider it to be wholeheartedly a spiritual journey. I, standing in my kitchen at the very beginning of this, I remember saying, this is going to be long. I understand that this is going to require deep surrender and deep trust. And in the face of even some doctors dismissing me, in the face of family rolling their eyes, oh, she's dramatic, she's being Lindsay, fill in the blank, whatever. I get to really center in and know that I am living an authentic and integral in oh my gosh, what is the word? It's right there.
Integrity, a life of integrity.
Thank you so much. A life of integrity. I know that I'm living from a place of truth, and so that trusting that has allowed me to trust my instincts and my intuition on such a deeper level, where spirit is saying, okay, now we're going to have you go do this. And it's not that I'm putting up a fight anymore. I'm like, okay, I hear you. Okay, I understand. okay, I hear that, and please provide a confirmation, and trusting in that confirmation. Got it. Taking a step forward, because this has required me to drastically, like, I don't want to say cut off everything that I've known. I don't want to say abandon my plan, because the plan has always been to teach. The plan has, and I am effectively still doing that. It just in a different way. I'm still being a creative entity. I'm still creative problem solving. I'm still creating art. It's just different. It just looks different. And to surrender to all of that has drastically been spiritual. And the gifts that come with that, like my intuition is much stronger. Some psychic moments happen really quickly, and I'm like, that's confirmation. That's so interesting. I trust spirit in a way that, I mean, I've always trusted spirit, but I like really trust spirit, right? Like, I'm not questioning, like, okay, what have you got going on up there? Like, what's the plan? Like, sometimes I'll still get there, but I no longer linger in that story. I'm in absolute trust that I'm being guided to where I need to go, to where I'm going to be flourishing, because I show up for spirit and spirit shows up for me. And so I'm like, cool. We're along this ride of this collaborative, co-creative path. And it makes it more of a fun ride now. Like, life is way more fun because I've surrendered my ego, because I've surrendered the resistance. Like, I say it in the sense of, like, I knew that I was supposed to be teaching women empowerment in this way. I was ignoring it. I kept saying, once I get to a professor position, I will be financially stable, and then I can do the thing that I'm supposed to be doing. I have always known that I'm meant to be starting a podcast. I'm going to be doing that this year. I've always known that I'm meant to be a writer. I just did that. Like, I have always known, and I ignored it. And when you ignore your intuition and the whisper that you're getting from spirit, like, those things amp up. And when you continue to ignore it or press pause or, play your own story of reasons why you can't lean into it right now, like, then it amps up. And I ignored it to the point where spirit was like, okay, do we have your attention now? And I had no, like, there was no other excuse. There was no other, like all senses went offline. My ability to form words was drastically impaired. Like, I couldn't, like, smart mouth spirit, I couldn't stubborn my way out of this. Like, all of the ego had to surrender. And there's no coincidence that my hands are the last to come back. As an artist, like, I know exactly what spirit is doing. Like, they're making me wait so that I stop going into the same patterns, because I would just turn to art. I would go back to what's familiar. I would want to teach art, and that's not what spirit is asking of me. And so I'm like, cool, I'm surrendering. I let go, and I'm letting God. And it hasn't been easy. This has not been an easy journey at all, but I'm in a place now where I'm like, okay, I'm in absolute trust. And just like I meet my inner child with that sweetness and tenderness, I know that God has got me with that sweetness and tenderness. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I hear it. I feel it. I feel it. Yeah.
Thank you. I can't help but notice that you have that sense of that hearing it and feeling it, mm-hmm. because of this journey, which has brought you so in touch with your body in this deeper way. Mm-hmm. And like you said, just stopped. And sometimes, I mean, I like to look back and go, there's no regrets, because if this or that hadn't happened, then I wouldn't know what I know now, or I wouldn't have the experience that I've had. And I love hearing you speak to that understanding for yourself on the journey. And also, it's not just been so easy, and it's not always easy. I don't think that's the goal, but the outcome as it were, although there's not the sense of completion, I believe, like we're ever going. And as you said, Sailor, like the ancestral, and I also think the collective entangled quantum field of energy that is part of this human existence, then we get to process not only what is physically there and within our own family line, in this, our parents and family that we are here with now, but then ancestrally, but then also in the greater quantum, the greater field of all. And then this is where we see the patterns, which is why, as mirrors and as living our lives as you are, we're that reflection, and we meet and connect with who we are meant to. And so it's been I love that we have met and connected, and been able to connect in the way of sacred connection. And now and I've had an experiential, I should speak that, I've had an experiential group experience where let me say experience one more time. Lindsay was um, guiding a group, and actually it was not in person, but it was in person, like we do often now, Zoom, and through a somatic experience. And I have to say, part of why I feel like Sailor and I are called to bring these conversations into your quantum embodiment is we can talk about it, just you and me, and we can get on the call, or we can get on the phone, or we can go for a walk, and we can talk about these things that we know to be very true and real within our lives. But when we share that with others, or we offer that we're in conversation with what has occurred in our lives, and we witness, and then we have tools, and then Lindsay, you're sharing about also what you've been led to do in your coaching and programs, and taking those tools that have been serving and are serving to you, and then sharing, and then knowing that when we can do so, whether there's two or more are gathered, that energy, which speaks to the energy within the quantum field. We know that there's not a limitation by time and space. So actually, maybe ever since 2020, there was a lot of limitations. Some people are still dealing with that limitation to being able to get face to face. But is that a limitation to be able to understand the connectedness of all, and to know one's not alone? And we are never, how could we be, and that your experience, which you brought to us, and we were all on a Zoom together, and you were playing the music, and everybody moved as they felt, they were moved to naturally. And I wasn't really looking at other people, but I Lindsay, you might have more feedback on that. It's not necessarily so important. Everybody was moving as they felt moved to. And the energy that was so obvious is I wasn't just doing this for myself, by myself, which I can do every single day, but there was a power that happened by the intention and the energy held in the same moment, but also knowing that quantum means it's timeless, spaceless. So at any moment, and that particular experience was recorded, but that energy is palpable, felt, and supported, um, whenever witnessed, whenever experienced. And I love that we have more of an understanding, almost based off the technology that we now have access to. And the positive side of it is understanding, oh yeah, there is more interconnectivity. Oh yeah, well, quantum physics is real. We might not get the total understanding of what the true definition of consciousness is, but what you're speaking to is something that I'm so glad that you joined us here today to talk about embodiment. And I want to know, is there any final things that you'd like to share before we wrap up the I want to say hour, feels like it's been maybe a little bit more, before we wrap up today?
Wherever you are on your healing journey, it might feel overwhelming, and it's not always easy, but it does get less hard. And I keep coming back to that for myself, because there are some days where I'll have a flare up, or I'll have a lot of mobility issues, or a lot of nerve pain, fill in the blank, whatever symptom or multiple are coming up. And I just think back to, okay, so this is the hard day, and tomorrow might be the less hard day, and that's okay, and they're both perfect in their own way. And this keeps me present with the clients who are living in chronic pain, and I can relate to them and coach them in a better way, because I know exactly where they are.
Mm-hmm. Oh, reminds me of, I love that reminder. And it reminds me of, whatever arises, be with that, love that. And just like we were speaking to kind of the root, and we've all experienced it, we have within a culture, perhaps within a family, within the greater collective, patterns of whatever arises, suppress that. Whatever arises is wrong. Whatever arises, you're wrong. Whatever arises, don't feel it. That's too much. Whatever, don't express it. Don't, no, no, no. Child hears the word they hear more than anything. Uh, they're growing in the very young toddler years is no. And so we're told no so much about expression and experience. And we have the opportunity to just speak to, but there's the truth of the yes. Arise, whatever arises, be with that. That is the mothering, the loving, the compassion, knowing it is a journey. Tomorrow can be so much different. In fact, in an hour, in a minute, because the only thing that's happening is now, which is really, incredible. Speaking to the quantum, it's timeless, but we do operate. This is where we have song and rhythm and things. There is a time, but each moment calls us to the presence of now. And sometimes that now is a lot with whatever the pain or the physical pain might be. And pain, physical pain, is one of the top symptoms that bring people to the doctor across the United States. Pain somewhere. And it's not just in the head. And it may come from something old, and it may be lingering, and it may have physical connection or manifestation within the physical being that could use some support. Yes. But is it then totally disconnected from the emotional body? Never. And to be with ourselves and to know that we can have a teacher or find support or go and be listened to and guided and understood on our journey is a component that I believe is priceless. And we just have at least one individual to know we're not alone when we're on the journey, which is the healing journey and this journey of life at this here and now, and call us back to the truth, which we might not have had a pattern to remember or know, but it's a truth we want to believe, like we can heal, or we can be embodied and it be safe. We can feel that free or that joy or that bliss. It's possible. They can do it. We tell you what, if you can do it from where you were, you can have that example. Anybody can. It's an extreme level of pain, both physically and emotionally and spiritually. And so I just honor you. And one of the things that crosses my mind is I imagine, even though it doesn't necessarily serve because it's not what is, but I can just only imagine, like, if that car accident hadn't happened, where your life would be and what your understanding of life would be at this point, and that's not what occurred, and here we are today. But that's to say, sometimes, as you said, and for each of us in our own examples, and more examples than even what was spoken to, if we hadn't experienced what we did, wouldn't have had the opportunity to seek, like, the peace that we all, I believe, naturally seek, is peace and love. And I'm just grateful for this conversation here today, so we could be that reminder, and such a joy to see you shining your light and sharing. And thank you. Thank you. Oh, and where can people reach you or find you, or what's the best way? Is there something you'd like to share that way? Just like a website or some type of platform you use?
Yeah, my website is currently being totally revamped. It was specifically just for, academic, studio art and theater, and so it's going through the whole transition phase now. Um, People can get a hold of me and or follow me on Instagram, Lindsay Lee _, Lionheart, Lindsay with an A as an apple, Lee, and yeah, and it's a similar handle on TikTok. I'm not thoroughly active just yet, but I'm again working through that. And yeah, there are other links to get a hold of me mostly through my Instagram. So thank you.
Okay. Yes,
And
thank you.
ladies, how about for the book?
Such a good reminder. Sailors.
Beautiful. Thank you. I'm still not used to that. I'm a published author and I get to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Through Amazon, Sacred Connection. There's I think, is it not directed by Ann Jonas? Is that what you would, what would the verbiage be for that?
Actually, if a person, I think it is directed. I think that would be it. It's directed by Ann Jonas, a mutual friend of ours. Obviously, we've written the anthology together. But I believe that because we're published authors, if people would even just type in your name, Lindsay Lee or Jennifer Markham or Sacred Connection or Ann Jonas or some of the other authors, that would come up on Amazon, and it's available in paperback as also on Kindle. And Sailor, I'm so glad that you just remembered and reminded us. And I don't want to go too much longer just because conscious of the time. But Lindsay, I want to just take a few moments. I feel like we want to backtrack for just a second, but we're not really going back. We're only going forward here. And now I just want to have you share name of your title, which chapter it is. And I know that some of your story and everything is shared in that, but I'll give you a moment, please, to share that and talk about it for a moment, please.
Yeah, so I'm chapter 2 and the basis of creation. The title is Grace on Fire. It's about the Phoenix transitions, and we heard a great deal about the traumatic brain injury, but there are other aspects of my story that I didn't really talk about here. For instance, the last final semester, just before my second master's degree, my now ex-husband and I broke up. And it was so abrupt in the sense of actions, but also because I knew his patterns, like I was not at all surprised. But I still had to show up in class and direct plays and some of the plays I had written. And so that was a lot to navigate. And then I really talked about, the Phoenix transition of how does one transform your life in the shitstorm? How does one transform your life when the universe has slapped you with a 2x4? How do you listen to your inner whisper? That sort of thing. I think that would be it in a nutshell. And I really hone in and talk about centering and listening to that inner whisper. And the glorious part of Phoenix transition. We get so caught up in the victim story of like, if I allowed myself to be in the victim narrative of he left me, of this thing happened, I lost so much from the traumatic brain injury from the car accident. It's like, but that's not how I view my life. I view the gifts in all of it, and I view the freedom in all of it, and being able to listen and truly arrive at a place of being able to co-create with spirit. All because, what we've been talking about of being able to go in and listen within, but also being able to listen from within. And those subtle differences of being able to do that, that's essentially the essence of my chapter, if you will, which I am looking to turn into a book. So that's an adventure that I am now on.
Well, beautiful. what a beautiful perspective on your journey. And I know it might be surprising, but I have yet to read the other author's chapters. It was a beautiful experience in coming together and creating this. And so yours being the second chapter, that's the second chakra. And I'm so excited. We've had this connection for a while that part of me feels like, oh, I know the story, but I don't know the story because it's a very personal story. And I believe that most of the other authors have shared part of the personal story, which is why it's about connecting, finding our deeper connection with self and the divine. And certainly excited to read about your experience as it extends. And thank you for sharing that with us today and your time with us today, Lindsay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is really great.
All right. Blessings. Until next time.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank
Look
you.
to the next episode, whatever we end up talking about.
Yeah, I'm excited. All right. Let me stop this. Oh.